Job searching is really hard. It's like really hard. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It truly is to do it well. The problem is a lot of people make it so much harder than it actually needs to be. And I know this because over the years, I've coached job seekers to the tunes of tens of thousands of them in a group format. I coach about 500 individuals a year, year in, year out, directly one-to-one. I hear their issues. Been doing that for 10 years. That's a lot of data points. And when you see job searching at that capacity, you notice the trends. And I see people stumbling through the job search, not truly understanding how to make each step effective to find their job the fastest, to make the best decision the fastest, to interview the best, to get paid the most. So today I'm going to tell you what those mistakes are, and I want to give you a completely different way of actually looking at what the scope of each step in the job search is so that you understand what mistakes you're making that are making it more difficult for you, as well as how to fix them to get better results. Who's charged? I mean, does that not sound like a bundle of fun? I know. Okay, let's get to it. Got some note cards today like usual. First thing I want you to understand is when I say steps of the job search, what am I talking about? Let's put it in plain old English. First thing is you need to figure out where you're going, right? You can call it self-awareness, you can call it career clarity, you can call it direction, whatever you want, but you have to know what direction you're going in. Let's just call that number one. Second thing a lot of people do is they put a resume together. That's fine. Third thing is they start searching, right? They start applying online for jobs, or maybe if they're ambitious, they're emailing people, or if maybe they go to Coach Andy's School of Boss Hunting, they're boss hunting potential managers and directors and VPs and people who can give them a job. So that's the third step. And then you interview and then you negotiate. That's basically it. Everybody goes through those hoops. Some people go through a few more than others, but you get the idea. And that's how a lot of people think about the job search. And that's actually true, except that when they look at each of the stages, they're trying to do too many things at once. That's the theme for today. So let's talk about this. And let me put a microscope on each stage, and let me help you better understand how I think you can lighten the load to improve your results. All right, first thing you do. I'm using C's. Everything that I have today is a C. First one is clarity. Call it whatever you want, but getting clear on where you're going. You need a compass to head in the right direction. You do not need a destination. That's part of the problem. So I want you to think of the first stage as getting your compass calibrated. And I'll talk about what that is, but before I get into that, I want to talk about the mistake that I think you make. How many of you start job searching and you think, all right, I need to go to a company like that or that exact company. I need to be called one of these, or I need to have that kind of title, or I need to be doing these kind of things and have that kind of job description, role description, right? There is a level of exactness that goes along with where you're trying to go, and you're thinking destination instead of direction. I don't know if you realize this, but this puts a ton of pressure on you. For those of you that go to the Andy School of Goal Setting, what do we call this? The outcome. You're so obsessed with the details of the outcome that you think you should be able to attain, making a decision with so little information as if you're exactly right even before you've taken your first step. So I want you to think more about direction, not destination, because destination makes it very, very hard. Yes, I want sample destinations, but what I really want you to do is create some lanes for yourself so that you have guardrails to operate within. And why is this important? Could we all agree for a second that you don't really get it until you get into it? The minute you put a plan together, right? What's a plan based on? History, maybe what's happened before. Assumptions, maybe what you think you should be able to do, get, or make happen. The amount of time it should take you, how much you should get paid, whatever it is. But could we agree that once you take a step in a direction, you're going to know more because you're going to gather data? Now, you may decide this isn't the direction for me. That's fine. But we call that an informed decision after you gather the data. A lot of people are trying to pick the spot and then do everything they possibly can and then put the pressure on themselves to actually hit that destination. And what I want you to do is I want you to create lanes for yourself. In my job search coaching program, I teach people how to create segments. The segments could be types of companies, it could be types of roles, types of solutions, but groupings that give them a chance to actually evaluate whether that direction is proper for them. But the way they do that is by investigating each of those pathways. But it's done in a uniform format where they decide, this is what I want, this is what I need in terms of the atmosphere, the environment, my requirements. I've called it my happiness factors, other things that you need, your needs, and then understanding who out there you can help, what they need in terms of goals and problems, what experience you have that could be applicable to supporting their ability to attain their goals and problems. And then you start to move, and then you start to gather data points. And then once you get the data points, you start evaluating, am I on the right path? And then you can put the pedal down. But the point is, path. It's more important the direction you're going than the speed you're going. And it's much more important the direction you're going than the final destination, because you are going to gain more clarity the more steps you take. You're not going to have pure clarity the minute you start. Okay, now I want to use an analogy from my life. When I thought about becoming a career coach, I had a trajectory, a lane. It was called, I'm going to career coach the hell out of this world, right? One person at a time if I have to. And I know that I'm going to use different communication factors, mediums that I have at my disposal to reach out to people, to educate them on how I can help them, to give them different ways that they can learn, whether that's writing something to them, emailing something to them, giving them a booklet, doing a podcast that's audio, doing a video, a recorded video, doing a live group coaching like this, do paid coaching, write books for them, and so on. There's a whole bunch of things inside that lane. And there are a lot of different types of career coaches. Some record videos, some have office hours every week, some just do one-to-one coaching, doesn't matter. They've decided what format they want to deploy themselves in. But ultimately what they did was they stayed in a lane. And so if it's not in my lane, right, I don't go and I don't anymore help organizations hire. I don't coach hiring staffs or recruitment staffs anymore. That's not part of my lane, because I became clear about what I wanted. And over the years, the format and the way I go about doing that has changed, but I've stayed in my lane. So you want to give yourself some guardrails that help you not only understand what's important to you, but what works for you, but the formats in which you want to offer your services to the types of companies you want to offer your services. Okay, so that's number one. And the thing I really want to drive home here, the point I want you to take away, you don't need the perfect answer. You just need a clear direction. That's the only thing the first stage is about. Get in and get in motion. All right, number two. A lot of you want to write a resume. I want you to write a resume. I'd prefer you understand the path you're on and who you're targeting first. So you're not writing your resume until you know where you're going or the direction you're going in, a la step one. But many of you think a resume is a work history document. That's mistake number one. It's not a work history document. It's a marketing document. And the other mistake that a lot of people make is they think they need to show who they are and how they are in the resume. All the resume does is get somebody to say, I need to talk to this person. That's its sole job. A resume does not get you a job. A resume does not get you hired. A resume opens a door to talk to somebody and actually have a conversation. So if you strip it down to understanding that it is a marketing document, and the only thing that needs to be in the marketing document are your credentials, you're going to have a much easier time writing it. I want you to think about it's what you are, what you've accomplished, so that they could get a picture of what you might be able to do for them. This is the sole job of what goes into the resume. It's your sole job to get this information into the resume. So here's the mistake people make. I need to show who I am. I need to show how I work. I need to show I'm a leader. How the hell are you going to do that? No, you don't. I need to show I'm a great communicator. How the hell are they going to know that? No, you don't need to. I need to show I'm organized. I need to show this. I need to show how I do that. I need to show that I'm culturally aligned. You can't do any of that from a piece of paper. So you're putting so much pressure on yourself to put language in there and to try to give somebody a sense of who you are and how you work, when this is the least effective medium to do that. Because in order for me to actually make that decision, I'm going to need to talk to you, which I'm not even going to do for 2 steps. So I want you to understand, the biggest mistake you're making is trying to demonstrate how you're a leader. You can't do that in a resume. You could talk about how many people you manage. That's housekeeping. What I really want to know is what happened to those people you managed. Did they all get promoted because you're the super mentor of the year? That's what I want to understand. But that's a credential. That is what I would call evidence, not identity. Evidence of the fact. What are your accomplishments? Just think. The only dang thing that needs to go on there is evidence of what I am and what I've accomplished. Show of hands. Give me it in the chat. I'm guessing I'm going to see a lot of pink wavies. How many of you are so stressed out about trying to tell people who you are and how you are in the resume that makes it very, very difficult for you to put this marketing document together? Credentials. That's all it is. Here's what happens when I go to work for companies. That's it. This is what I made happen. You can tell them how you made it happen later. Okay. Next one. The searching aspect, the actual job searching, is about connections. That's all it is. Connect. That's it. I want movement and momentum that's much greater than perfect messages. So think movement and momentum. How are you going to move? In the direction that you set in step 1. That's all you're doing. Now, here's the huge mistake that most people make. They're trying to select. They're trying to decide. They're trying to cherry pick before they have any intelligence or G2 or any conversations with people inside those companies. This is big mistake number 1. You're actually sitting at your desk deciding whether you even think you're going to like those organizations. You're already selecting them before you've even had an opportunity to talk to anybody in the organization because you saw something on their website. You saw something on Glassdoor. You saw a bad review. Some friend of yours who worked there 17 years ago didn't like it. You had a bad experience with a small company, so now all small companies are bad and you don't want to go that route anymore. You had bad experience at a large company, at a startup, at a company that laid people off, at a company that divested, at a company that merged, as if every company is exactly the same. If you've got the right direction and you've got the right credentials and you stay in motion, you're going to have much better luck. And then the other thing you're doing is we never miss an opportunity at an Andy show to beat on the applicant trashing system. Stay out of that. You're making it really, really hard because you're spending a lot of time with an activity that is super low yield. So stay out of the applicant trashing system. So what's the fix? You want to systematize your outreaches according to segments or groups so that you can create conversations. If your goal in the searching aspect is to learn about companies, you're going to be a hell of a lot happier than if your goal in the searching step is to actually get a job. You don't get a job. You have a conversation. You eventually will get a job, but that's not till the 5th step. So you're putting so much pressure on yourself in step 3 to get the interview. But if you had a system that was automatic, your outreaches were automatic as brushing your teeth every day, and you removed all self-negotiation, and no matter what, you got those 3 messages out a day. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my Job Search Challenge. But you have a system in place that keeps you moving in the direction you set or selected in step 1. That's all you're doing. All I need are conversations. I don't care who I'm having them with as long as they are in my lanes. Okay, if you're having them outside your lanes, then you might start to question your selection process. Systematize. Stay in motion. It's just a conversation. It doesn't matter if it's tense and they're stiff and they're asking you behavioral interview questions. Some are going to be like that, yes, but a lot of them will not be. Conversations. Okay, next thing. Now, to your joy, you actually get to communicate. Interviews are about communication. Now you get to explain who you are, and you can regale them with how you're going to do stuff and how you're going to change their life. This is what happens when you hire me. This is what happens. Here's how I do it. Here's why I do it. Here's all the mistakes that I've made and overcome. Here's all the challenges you're going to face. I already know that because. Here's how I go about fixing them, and so on. Now you actually get to communicate your leadership skills. Although here's a wonk wonk for you. When you get to this stage, more than anything, you're going to want to tell them about a number of things, and it's all down to being able to get them to envision what's going to happen. And the biggest mistake that people make when they actually get to this step is they want to start reiterating the skills and the features, what we called credentials earlier, when they have already said, we got your credentials. We know what you are. We don't know who you are or how you behave or how you operate. So a big mistake that you're doing in the interviews is you're trying to explain all the skills you have, when interviews don't work that way. Nobody buys skills and nobody buys features, because what they're doing is they're trying to deduce what's going to happen in their environment based on what you said you've done in the past. The closer you can match what you've done in the past to what they need in the future, the easier it's going to be for them to see. And the other things about the skill sets that you think you have, like leadership and communication and organization and all of these other what I call career skills, which are totally paramount, you're trying to explain that when that's not what they don't want you to explain leadership. They want to see how you go about doing things and mechanically what you do, so they could decide she is a leader. They can decide she must be organized. She must be important. And what they're doing is they're storing little feelings along the way as you're talking, and they're never explicitly saying, well, what skills do you have? They never ask you that. And even if they did, you want to tell stories in order to be able to illustrate for them, in order to be able to illustrate how their future's going to change. So all of that's going to come out, the leadership, the communication, and all of that's going to be deduced. They're going to know if you're a good communicator dependent on how you told the story. If you tell a story that's sloppy, unorganized, with overloaded with detail and inertia in it, they're going to know you're not a good communicator. But they're not going to be able to see that or ascertain that from the resume. So you want to make sure that you're packaging up what you've done into stories that are scenes, only scenes from your background that give them an illustration of what you're going to do for them in their future. When you hire me, here's what happens. Here's why it happens. Here's how I know it's going to happen. And here's where I got the experience. That's what you're doing. These are the results we're going to produce for you. Okay, fifth step. Fifth step is not compensation. It's not compensation, although that's what most people think it's about. It's about contribution. You need to focus on what they're getting. It isn't about what you want to get paid. It's about what you're going to do for them. You're trying to juggle asking for more money when the thing you ought to be laser focused on is what they're going to get. When you hire me, here's what's going to happen for you. Here's how I'm going to make it happen. Here's the order in which I'm going to make it happen. Here's the value it's going to mean to you and the delta of what's going to occur when you hire me. That's where you need to get their attention. So the mistake that most people are making is not only are they focusing on their own money, but you're focusing on what you want. You're focusing on your compensation. You shouldn't do that. In order to get paid more, you need to focus less on how much you want. I know, sounds weird, but what's going to get you paid more? Anchoring their attention on your contribution and value. If I said to you, I want you to hire me as your career coach because I'm super awesome at creating detailed videos, and you're going to watch them until your eyes fall out of your head. And then once you understand everything, I'm going to make you go through exercises, and you're going to have to figure out where you want to go. And then you're going to figure out how to write your resume. And I have these tools you can use because I spent hours and years building them, right? That's what you're doing in an interview. Instead of, I'm going to help you find your job faster. It's going to be better, and you're going to get paid a lot more. That's it. That's what's going to happen. So what's that worth to you? So I'm going back and forth right now with a guy I coached yesterday on a salary negotiation. We're trying to get him more money. Right. Well, if he's able to get $10,000 more, by negotiating effectively, isn't that better? Wouldn't you part with $1,000 to make 10,000 more? Sure you would. Right. But what are most people focused on? Coach Andy, you want me to pay you how much money? $1,000? That's a lot of money because I have to swipe the credit card because you're looking at your cost. That's the same thing an employer is going through. What are they getting as a result of you being there? What value are they attaching to your contributions? And have a discussion so you can get their eyeballs, their ears, and all their attention on what's going to happen when they hire you. Because when I understand what's going to happen as a result of me hiring you, I'm going to be much more apt to part with money to make that happen because I can see the return on investment. But if all you talk about is how much money you want, I can't see the return. All right, so just to kind of give you the overarching theme of what I think is happening as I see and coach people, here's your big theme. You're asking each step of the job search to do too much, or at a minimum, you're focused on the wrong thing. Either which way, you're making it harder. So I want you to start thinking about the breakdown. Here's your summary right here. You got 5 steps. You got 5 purposes. The first one is clarity. And really what I'm saying here is I want you to have a clear direction of where you're headed, or the possible directions. It's okay to have 5 if you're telling me I'm pursuing and I'm in the investigation stage so I could gather data so I could be more clear on either what I like or I'm okay with all different 5 trajectories. I need to find a job. I need to see which areas out in the world have a greater appetite for me. That's the first thing. Second thing, it's just about credentials. It's not who you are. It's not what you are. I am not the Milewalk Academy website. Okay. God forbid that you would think that. Okay. That is not who I am. That's just a list of things that I offer and sell. Right. Okay. So it's about credentials, what you are, what you've accomplished. That gives them a sense of what's possible for them. Then the searching is about connections. You're just making connections. That's all you're doing. Hopefully you're making good connections. Then it's communication. In the interviewing process, you get to talk. You get to tell them who you are, how you're going to change their lives and all that good stuff. And then when you get to the negotiation, it's focus on your contribution. Here's what's going to happen for you when you hire me. What's that worth to you? Not here's what I want. Okay, 5 steps, 5 purposes. All right, if you enjoyed that, please click the like button, share this with people. People need help. Subscribe to the station because you know it hurts me when you don't get my Tuesday videos or my Thursday live office hours alerts. If you are here with me live, we're going to the chat. If you are watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week.